Welcome to The Problem, a Lockwood & Co. podcast. I'm Caitlin.
I'm Alan.
And this week we're talking about the third part of part 3?
Yep.
The final part of part 3?
The end.
Okay.
Not the
Chapter
end.
16 and 17.
Just the end of this part.
Yeah.
Lost and Found.
In Chapter 16, Lucy and Lockwood go undercover at the Winkman's black market for relic men. Also, I just realized that's going to sound weird because all of our chit-chat, that'll be cut. Yeah, well.
Nah, that's fine.
No chit-chat for the listeners. Just you get to know that there was chit-chat. But it was cut out because it was boring chit-chat about scheduling. The chapter art is obviously the abandoned tube station.
Mm-hmm.
I know I've told somebody this story, but I think it was on the podcast, but I don't remember. But my number one memory about a tube station is the time that I was desperately trying to get on, through the turnstiles. They're not turnstiles anymore, but you know what I mean. Using my room key from our house. Because they use the same technology, right? So it was beeping, but it wasn't letting me in, obviously. And I just kept tapping it, thinking that the machine was wrong. And then, my group of people were all on the other side staring at me. Anyways, then I figured out I had the wrong card and swapped them. And our public transit here uses the same exact system. It was the same company that set it up. So I understand.
You know how to use it.
Yeah, I know how to use it.
I do that at work a lot. I try to open the door with the ID that I keep in my wallet, but it's scanning my credit card and it's no, you can't come in here.
Since I've been working from home, sometimes I find my work ID in my purse and I'm like, what is this? And I pull it up. I'm like, oh yeah, that probably won't even let me in the office anymore because they've updated everything.
Okay. So this is the tube. That's a lift is an elevator, a tube is a subway. Do I have that right?
Sure. But a lot of different places have different names for their rapid public transit, right? We don't call ours a subway because most of it is not underground. We call ours the SkyTrain because it's lifted above the street on thing.
There's a thing like that in Detroit. And when I lived in Chicago, it's called the L for an elevated train. So
yeah, same idea. So I don't know. This one seems fine to me because it is a subterranean way, but it is also kind of tube shaped.
Oh yeah, I get the name. Yeah, I just wasn't sure. Sometimes you're like, oh yeah, I get the context, but then you're just totally wrong, and that's me.
Actually fair. My favorite, English versus North American, word misunderstanding thing is that I got into a 10-minute argument one time with the cook at the place that I was volunteering at when I was in England, because I was just like, why do they call it Yorkshire pudding? And she was like, because it could be sweet or savory. And I was like, yeah, but why pudding? And she was like, because it can be sweet or savory. And I was like, yeah, but why pudding? And she angry was like, because it can be sweet or savory. And it took me weeks after that to understand that the pudding that we have here in North America, the goopy, custardy stuff, this doesn't exist in England. It does not exist at all. And I understood that pudding, the word, was just interchangeable with dessert in England, but I thought it was because the way that we say Kleenex for tissue, I just thought pudding was a dessert that everybody had.
I misunderstood that for a long time. I don't even think I knew what you just said, that it just means a dessert, because I was like, oh, it just means a weird bread thing, I guess, in England.
I think it does. I think it's a specific type of dessert, but it has just become so interchangeable.
Yeah, I definitely
could be wrong.
Do not know this stuff. So I'm always a little nervous when reading the book. So this place is called Vauxhall. Mm-hmm. I think that's how you say it, right? This is a real place in London. So the tube here was built in the 1970s in the real world and goes underneath the river, the Thames. I feel like it's Stroud just assumes that the reader would know that stuff. It's cool that it's abandoned though. So, but we'll talk about it when we get there.
Is it abandoned in real life? I didn't.
No.
Check.
It's not.
No, it's normal. All right. So they get into costumes. And we get the very first. Okay, these 2 chapters are full of people saying absolutely scathing things to each other about their appearance.
It's great. Yeah.
And like friend or foe. And I get it. When I, to this day even, but like especially when I was like a teenager / early 20s, friendship was all about who could insult each other the worst, right? Like, or who could one up each other, basically. And I get it. But also some of this is just terrible. Like, I think it is poor choices made by Stroud.
Oh, really?
Yes.
It's pretty funny. It doesn't feel like one-upsmanship, like what you're saying.
No,
it doesn't feel that way.
But like but like the subtly scathing things, but also like later on, there's just a really big emphasis put on, especially the bad people's size, and I think that that's a slippery slope.
Yeah, yeah. The Relic Men actually seem to have like various skin diseases and stuff like that, and that's folded in with their intrinsic badness, I think, in a way that's like, that kind of sucks.
Yeah. I kind of get, or at least I'm not as sensitive to equating general like unpleasant looks, especially in this case with evilness, because it is sort of mentioned that they're not, that people become Relic Men because they're desperate, and desperate people are probably not keeping up with
they're
hygiene.
like homeless.
Yeah. So I get that, but what it just sort of seemed like but then to equate to this ugliness that he describes, or unhygienicness or whatever, with being large, that's shitty. But anyways, our first example here is not that. It's just Holly saying that it's going to take half an hour for her to make Lockwood look bad, and about 5 minutes for Lucy.
So before I said that, like, Holly has become the comic relief or something like that.
Yeah.
And this is the kind of thing that I mean. Like, I don't think that she thinks she's being mean or anything. She's just giving like an accurate assessment of the time involved. So I
kind of hope she's like that she did do that on purpose, like maybe with a little bit of a wink or a grin or something, just because it would showcase her being comfortable around Lucy and able to tease in a friendly way.
I think you could definitely read it like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I do also think, though, that if like Stroud would have put that in if it was,
if she
that's
winked
what he was
or something.
going for, like he would have made clear that that's the level where their friendship was.
But also, Lucy doesn't like blow up at it either. No. She's like, it just kind of happens and then it keeps going, which feels like a comedy beat to me. It's like, you're supposed to laugh, and then it's, then it starts talking about like the wigs that they're going to wear and stuff like that. It is fun in the beginning where it talks about Lockwood being so excited to, like put on costumes and use his accents, which are always terrible and don't work. So I don't know. This stuff is a lot of fun.
A great callback.
Yeah, it's good.
And also, just anytime, I do like whenever Lockwood's desire to be a kid shines through.
Yeah.
Because it happens so seldom for him.
Especially this far into the series.
Yeah.
You just get less and less of it.
We do also get this bit where they're talking about weapons that they could bring, and obviously they can't bring their rapiers because that's the mark of an agent. And then Lucy just says, in the end, Lockwood and I both took daggers. And I'm like, why do you have daggers just lying around? Like, who just has some extra daggers that they're not using?
It'd be fun if they were like the Moogle daggers from Whispering
Book
Skull.
2. Yeah.
Yeah.
But still,
I don't think they are.
Did you say Moogle?
Yeah.
like the owl bat things from Final Fantasy, Moogle?
No, not that kind of Moogle. Like the Moogle dynasty. That's how,
Is that how it was
Lockwood
pronounced?
knew what they were. It's definitely the same sound word. Yeah.
Okay. I feel like it was pronounced differently, but my mind is only supplying Morgul, and that's Lord of the Rings, so
No, that's Lord of the Rings. That's different.
maybe people need to make things sound differently. Go back in time, fix that dynasty up, get it out of my fantasy stories, you know?
I wonder if it's a reference now that you say that.
To Morgul or Moogle?
The Mughal dynasty and then the Mughals as like a joke.
I was going to say, I don't know if the Final Fantasy writers have a sense of humor, but they used to when
When they made
first-
Mughals, they did. Yeah. There's a bit here that is a nice little clue to George's life where he's like, when they're talking about the weapons and stuff, he's like, well, these kind of relic men have this and these other ones have that. And Lucy's like, you seem well versed in relicman business. And George does something with his glasses. Maybe I chat with Flo from time to time. No law against that, is there? And she's like, no, it's fine. So I feel like Lucy knows what's up, or she is sensing that something is up.
I also just love that George has this whole secret life that he just doesn't tell them about.
He doesn't talk about it.
I hope that it's like on purpose. Like he's like, if I have to watch all their drama play out, they get none of mine. They get nothing.
Then it kind of skips through time, I guess, and Lucy kind of tells us about Voxel and like what's going on with that and where it's at and everything. And they meet up with Flo by a viaduct.
And she compliments their disguises, although also still thinks that they are fools for wanting to do this.
Yeah, that she's probably right.
I don't know. Like, if Skull were a person, everybody would be on board with this. You know, he is part of the team.
I will point out that this whole thing fails, so she's not wrong.
She's not wrong. But it teaches them what the cloaks do, or that they work. So it's important for the plot.
Yep. But she is fooled by the disguises at first, and then Lucy is like speaking in an accent. Flo's not impressed.
Because we had issues last week recording, but I had read and taken my notes last week. I re-listened to the chapters this morning.
Yeah.
Just to remind myself what happened. And in the audiobook, obviously, the narrator tries to actually do an accent. And I was like, she was so good at poorly doing the accent.
It's really impressive.
Yeah.
It's good. Because you're like, why is Lucy talking like that? Yeah. And then Lockwood's like, isn't it great? Isn't she doing such a good job? And she's like, oh, okay.
And also Flo never mentions George or that they chat. So I gotta assume she's the same thing. Like, ugh, these two, never telling them anything.
What's the point anyway? They're so wrapped up in their own stuff.
Anyways, so she tells them that the meeting is going to be in the underground, like abandoned part of Vauxhall Station. And then we learn kind of about how there was a gas explosion and a lot of people on a train died. So there's a lot of ghosts down there, and as well as like newer ghosts that have been killed by the original ghosts. So it's like ghost piling up on ghosts down there. Real bad.
Real bad. Yeah.
So it's going to be a great place for a meeting with a lot of ghost sources brought together.
Yeah. But this makes sense for how black markets have to work. So it seems like their solution to this was to just like pour concrete into the entrance and then that's like done with it. But there's still other side ways to get in.
That seems fair to me though, because if everyone knows what's down there,
oh yeah,
you know, nobody's going to want in. You just want to keep out the stupid kids.
Yeah.
Although maybe kids in this world wouldn't risk that. But you know what I'm saying? Like kids who would be like, I dare you to go down there and yeah.
Or the ghost cult people who are like, you know, we should go to the train. Yeah.
All right. And then Flo is like, I'm going to take you in or I'll show you how to get in. But then we don't know each other. If they kill you, I'm going to ignore you. That's your problem.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know each other anymore. So Flo goes in, they wait a minute, and then they go in, and then Lockwood is Lockwood. And has to exasperate any situation.
Yeah.
So it's, as much as he is so much better in this book, it's good to know he's still him.
Yeah, this makes Lucy really nervous. There's like two guys and a little girl. I love this like set. It says the men were there to break your bones, but the child was the key. She was the sensitive who vetted the objects being brought to the meeting. And so like the inversion of power here is really good. The dystopian kind of exploitation of children happening on both sides of the law and all of that stuff is good stuff. But yeah, he gets them in here and like does his thing to try and get them through the door.
Yeah, the exploitation of children is like so rampant in these books, even outside of the problem, as we've talked about. It's fine. Let's move on.
Yeah, it's crazy. I love how poised this girl is, how she just is, because they're very violent with Lockwood. He's like mouthy and they're like threatening him with a cane. They've got it like jammed up under his chin and stuff. And she's like, no, it's okay. Let them through. And they just immediately back off.
So many interesting stories within these like brief glimpses of characters that we get. Mm-hmm. It's like, where did she come from?
Yeah, who does she work for? Like, yeah.
Why is she so poised around the violence? Yeah. Anyways, they take the daggers, so it was useless anyways.
And they're like the violent one and the talky one. And the talky one's like, you think this is a Moogle dagger? You think? He's like, you mean from Final Fantasy? What are you talking about?
Kupo.
Yeah.
I'm so glad we finally had a Final Fantasy episode. We've both been waiting for this. On this next paragraph, they talk about going down long ladders. And last weekend, when I was taking my notes, I just wrote the word ladders as some sort of signal to myself that I would know what to talk about. I mean, ladders do suck. Well, I've had to climb up a 60-foot wall ladder before. That's just... Jeez. And down, up and down. More than once. Go to school for theater, kids. It's fun.
Oh, yeah.
Ladders. I'm not a fan of heights.
Lockwood has a thing with ladders, right? Like, you'll need a ladder. His whole thing.
Was that in the books?
No, it's not.
Okay. Are we sure? Oh, yeah, because he just gets up on the table and, like, does little jumpies.
Yeah. Yeah, trying to reach it. It's pretty funny.
Yeah, ladders suck. I don't know what I was going for here. I hate them.
This is pretty scary, though. Like, it says that she, like, her hands go numb and she lost count of how many rungs it was. It was dark. In the middle of her going down, she gets all of this, like, ghost static.
Yeah, very Descent into Hell.
Yeah, there's a lot of my notes is like this whole thing has like Orpheus vibes to me. There's very like going into the underworld kind of stuff happening.
And then, yeah, that's interesting actually. My next note, so they're down there and like they get to the bottom of the ladder eventually. Nobody falls, yay. And then Lucy is just sort of describing where the relics are, how they're, and what the people look like, and blah, blah, blah. And I just wrote down, how did the old ones find relics?
Yeah, I always wonder that too, because there's like some really old people here from what she says.
Yeah.
And I was like, I get how flow works. It's just, what?
And just in general, like, I guess they employ children, or quote unquote employ. Like we kind of see in the auction in book 2, that they all bring children with them. But that's like the rich people. That's not the... who are there to do the bidding. That's not the people out searching.
Probably a lady around here with like a bunch of cats on leashes, and that's how she finds them when they all freak out.
The dream. Being like a cat criminal. Ugh. Not like, I mean like a criminal who uses cat. Anyways, it's fine.
Not a cat burglar. While she's looking at all these people, she suddenly hears a voice calling her name.
Yay.
And it's Skull. Lucy, help me.
This is such an interesting point, though, because, like, did he just feel her thoughts?
Yeah. Or, like, see her somehow. She's like a beacon, he says.
Yeah, or, like, because they've been, like, building their connection, are they just can they just tell once they're within range of each other? How far does that range go? We need some George-style experiments done on Lucy and Skull.
Yeah. I'm sure he's been calling out for her, but it does seem like he knows that she's here.
Yeah.
And it's also weird that like he knows that she's there and then later he's like, oh, Lockwood's with you. So he can't like sense everything that's around him. It seems like he was specially tuned into her, like you're saying.
Oh, yeah.
Their connection.
He recognized her.
Yeah.
And he speaks before Lucy really has time to acclimate, so we don't know if she would have recognized feeling him.
Mm-hmm.
But I would be interested to know that too.
And he's also in a room full of like noisy stuff to her, so like it might have been harder anyway.
That's true. Anyway, so they start having a conversation about where he is, what's been happening, who's with him, all that sort of thing. And Lockwood is like, you're mumbling to yourself. What's going on?
Yeah, you look crazy.
She's like,
Don't do that.
It's the skull. It's good. And he's like, well, some other people here are a little bit crazy, so that's fine, I guess.
You know, she was chiding him to be like, don't be so aggressive with people. And he's like, that's realistic. That's how relic men are. And then he's like, don't talk to yourself. People are going to notice. And she's like, they're all crazy too. It's fine. You can tell they're both a little bit jumpy, the way that they're kind of criticizing each other.
Yeah.
So there's good like show, don't tell stuff going on here, I think, with that whole thing.
Definitely.
There's lots of like people milling around one part of the whole thing, which is where they're headed to follow Skull's voice. And they see Adelaide Winkman and her son Leopold.
Yeah, so there's people like looking to buy things. There's people looking to sell things. They do catch a glimpse of Flo at one point.
Mm-hmm.
Skull confirms that Guppy's source, the teeth, are also in there. And Is this where he says, I of course did not make a note of it, but it's somewhere he says they're going to take me to the place of blood or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Which is what Harold Mailer's ghost had said.
Right. She's immediately like, what is the place of blood? And he's like, I don't know. But like, it doesn't sound good. So how about I never find out?
And again, I'm not sure where I am here, but Lucy also asks what type of person is in there with him. And Skull just gets like, I don't know. He's just a dude, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And he's neither this nor that. He's just here. And I really love how Stroud follows this line of this guy just being the most unnoticeable, nondescript dude, but he turns out to be quite violently evil.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's really interesting.
It's kind of the banality of evil type thing of like the worst of the like Nazis and stuff were just bureaucrats, right? They weren't like these alpha male killers or something. They were just like accountants, but with people's death.
Yeah. Skull also catches on to Lockwood being with her, and I love that, like, Skull wants to be rescued. He's happy to see them, but he's also like, oh, did he hear it was a suicide mission and said, sign me up? And it's like, you hope it's not a suicide mission for your sake, buddy.
It is a little bit of Skull's role of saying the thing that Lucy won't admit to herself.
That's true, yes.
So she's like, she knows deep down that this is putting Lockwood in trouble, and she's asking him to do it for her, and she feels bad about it. I do like the joke that he says where she's like, okay, well, we found the table and we know that they're taking stuff back there. So like we're getting closer to you. We're just waiting in line with our stuff. And he's like, what are you queuing now? Just how British are you people? Don't just stand in line, kill somebody. It's good. Like Skull is back.
I do love that that's what he wants. Like, just kill somebody. So then just after that, Lockwood comes up with a plan and is basically, he will cause a big distraction, and then Lucy will go in and grab the skull. She will have to deal with whatever she finds in that room, though, herself. And Lucy's like, yeah, sounds good, which does cause Lockwood to just look at her and be like, I've missed you so much, Lucy.
Aww.
And before she can really say anything back, he's off to causing a distraction.
Mm-hmm.
It's cute, but also, like, is he just looking for someone to say yes to his crazy plans?
I don't know. I think they have a special thing where they work together. When it's working, it is like magic between
Yeah,
the two of them.
no, I do too. I was just...
I think he really does miss it in a way where, like, George will have very normal self-preservation problems with Lockwood's plans in a way that Lucy doesn't.
Because Lucy can always fall back on old reliable of blowing everything up.
Yeah.
And she's cool with that.
She also has no boundaries, so it works out. Yeah. I do like this line here where it talks about my veins fizzed at the danger he was putting himself in. I didn't waste time or effort. I only nodded. If Lockwood saw it away, I went with it. He trusted me. I trusted him. That's how we stayed alive, which is like the just reckless enough kind of stuff from the show.
And basically just succinctly said what we were just saying.
Yeah. It's
Thanks,
just a really
Stroud.
good articulation of it.
And yeah, so Lockwood goes and starts to cause a diversion, and everybody looks his way, so Lucy just walks right into the room where Skull is. And that is the end of chapter 16.
In chapter 17, Lucy and Lockwood make an improvised escape into the haunted tunnels of the abandoned subway. I mean, tube.
How American of you.
Yeah. Now that you say that, I wonder if in the North American version it says subway.
No.
No, it says tube? Wow.
Well, they call it a tube station, definitely.
Okay.
I don't know if they say tube all the time, but because it's so known, the London Underground being called the tube, like calling it something else would be silly. But also, we've seen them do some really silly North American translations. So,
to me, I thought
guess...
like the London Underground is like a band, right? And that's the only thing it is. And it was like, no, it's the other way around.
The chapter art is the ghosts on the train. Obviously, they look really fucking creepy.
Yeah, it's very creepy. It's really
the way
good.
that they're all sitting next to each other,
and how part of the train is like blown apart on the other side of like it's in debris.
I don't like it.
Skull was saying in the previous chapter, he's like, I don't know where I am. Maybe it's like a girl's bathroom. It probably is. That's even more humiliating for me. And then Lucy gets in there at the beginning of this chapter, and she's like, I don't think it was ever a girl's bathroom. It was far too big, which I think is actually a really good joke.
I don't know. It's a strange thing to keep bringing up, but...
Oh, that it's like, yeah, I think it is weird to be like, it's humiliating to be in a girl's bathroom. But saying that, like, this room's way too big to be a girl's bathroom, that's pretty funny to me.
Okay. So she goes in and she does clock that the tooth collection is there, and then also is like, oh, it's Skull. Yay.
Skull is like, hey, yeah, stab this guy and let's get out of here.
I wrote down, he always has a great plan.
He's right about this. That's what she should do.
That is absolutely what she should have done.
But then she notices the guy at that point.
Yeah, but also I don't think she had a weapon on her at this point, so no stabbing could happen. True.
But he's just one of these, like, from the whole description, it's like he had nondescript brown hair slicked back away from a bland, slightly shapeless face. And it's like he's just like a non-person. He's just like NPC flavored.
Yeah. And even she says she kind of recognizes him, or he seems familiar, but at this point she doesn't know if that's because, like, she's seen him before, or if he's just kind of like the everyman.
Right. Yeah.
Anyways, they have a bit of a conversation where she comes up with a pretty good lie, I think, and she convinces him of it that, like, there was some sort of mix-up, mostly because she's like, do you hear that ruckus out there? Everyone's pissed off about this. And sure enough, Lockwood's distraction is causing quite the ruckus.
Yeah. She basically says, Adelaide sent me to get the skull, and it's the wrong skull. We're going to bring you the right skull in a minute. But she makes all kinds of tiny mistakes, right? Like, she's like, oh, Adeline apologizes. And he's like, she what? Like, she doesn't do that.
But like that, to me, you could say, oh, yeah, I just put that on there because I'm like, that's something I would say in that situation. You know what I mean? Like, if Adelaide had sent me in there, I would say Adelaide sends her apologies, even though Adelaide said nothing of the like. So I don't think that's too bad.
It's just a bunch of implausibilities make him suspicious, I think.
And delays is what it is, because by the time he's good with her to take the skull, Leopold is in the doorway.
Yep.
With ridiculous shoulder pads on his expensive fur coat.
That's funny.
That sounds so ugly.
Yeah, it's really good. Really got to project that masculinity, you know. You step up and be the man of the house.
In a fur coat. The only thing I ever associate fur coats with is Narnia.
Oh, okay.
Which is because when they go through the wardrobe, they take the fur coats. Like, fur coats just aren't a thing anymore.
Even rich people think it's not cool now.
The only other thing, that memory of a fur coat I have, is from Ghostbusters when
when it comes alive.
When it comes alive and runs away. Yeah. I don't think I've ever seen one in real life.
I think I only associate them with pimps, so I don't make any of these associations.
I was really not expecting you to say that. Pimps.
Yep. So it works for me that Leopold's doing this because that's the energy that he's trying to project.
Yeah, that's fair. That's probably where Strad was going for too. My mind just doesn't go there at all. Anyways, she wants the skull in the jar, blah, blah, blah. And then Skull's like, don't worry, you can take him, big girl like you. And then he pulls out a gun and is like, or possibly not.
A big girl like you.
Terrible. Anyways, so as they're trying to get out, and it's a whole big thing. Lucy like breaks open some of the relics, and you know the general plan. But at one point, Skull says, "My turn. Lift up the jar and keep going." So Lucy lifts up the jar, and he does this like bright light thing.
Yeah, this is cool.
It is cool, but. Usually, when Lucy is in semi-danger, Skull is like, okay, it's my turn, let me out. He did not ask to be let out here. He decided to be useful instead of being a jackass. And I think that shows that Lucy was actually in danger in this situation, and therefore so was Skull. So he was like, I can actually do something. But also, like, he could have done something all those other times and didn't.
He definitely could have done this move before. It's a little confusing to be like, can everyone see this and hear? He like screams. So I'm not sure. Like, it says that the men are like afraid of this and knock into each other. They kind of do like a domino, one falls into the other kind of a thing so that she's able to get through. But I guess everyone can see this.
It's very confusing about who can see and experience what. Because at one point, when one of the relics breaks open, she says that the adult man, the nondescript man, can sense it. Yeah. So I am unclear on the rules of this world, but we've been over that before.
Yeah, and I remember, I think it's in book 1 or 2, that Barnes sees the face in the jar. Skull. Yeah, and he's like, get rid of that thing. That's not cool. So I'm assuming that they can all see it.
Man, I didn't take any notes for the rest of this chapter until the very last page. Go me.
There you go.
Anyways, so she gets the skull. He does the light thing. They get out of there. Lockwood sees them burst out, and he like flips a table, which is great. I mean, who hasn't wanted an opportunity in their life where they get to just flip a table?
He does a super cool move here too, where he not only flips the table, but kind of braces his hands on the edge of it and then jumps over it. So he like flips it in order to go over it at the same time. So I don't know. He's just very heroic.
Yeah. Anytime you vault over something, you're a hero in a movie.
Yeah. That looks
This is
cool.
a book. Whatever.
But they're like, you know, Leopold's hot on their heels, and his mom also comes out, and they run for the tracks to get away. Leopold, though, manages to tackle Lucy and grab Skull.
Oh, yeah.
And then...
it's very sad.
Yeah, Skull is like, save me. But Leopold knocks her in the head, and she kind of has a concussion moment and he gets the skull away from her.
A moment. That's how concussions work.
Yep.
But they realize that they're not going to make it up the ladder and that they're going to have to head for the tunnels.
Yeah.
Adelaide kind of corners them, like there's a ghost on the other side and Adelaide on this side, and they're like, well, shit. But then it turns out that Lockwood has some of the magnesium flares in his wig. And I don't know about you, but hiding bombs in my wig,
I know. It's
not
crazy.
something I've ever wanted to do.
It's smart, though, because they don't find them when they get frisked. They didn't think to look in their hair. But, yeah.
I guess they were good wigs. I don't know, man.
I do like about this that, like, you know, you're reading an adventure book or whatever, and I'm never too worried that, like, Lockwood's going to get beaten to death by these guys or Lucy's going to get killed or anything like that. But the fact that they don't get Skull is, like, real stakes, right? Like,
Yeah.
They fail at doing the thing that they wanted to do, and this is a failure that really, really hurts.
Yeah. Especially since Skull is like yelling out so pathetically.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Lucy. Oh, poor Skull. Anyways, they throw one of the flares at Adelaide and one at the ghost that was blocking their way. So
This
then
is
they
so
can
cool.
run past the iron line and off into the haunted tunnels.
Yeah. It like blows up in both directions. It's a really good, like he does a good job of describing it, how they kind of hold each other while they're being pushed from both sides
Yeah.
as the explosions go off. And then
The whole chapter is
they
very
run.
cinematic.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah. So they run off and they realize that their only way out is basically through the haunted train, and Lockwood is like, we could put on the cloaks. That's what the Shabbats used to talk to their ancestors with, so it would have kept them safe. And he's like, these are not our ancestors.
But this is a hell of a way to test it, right? Like they really haven't tested.
Yeah,
if
no,
these things work
this
or
is
not.
just working on faith, going on faith here.
Yeah.
But it works. They put them on, and they, as long as they keep themselves wrapped in the cloak, they can walk through the extremely haunted train.
There is a moment where when he, you know, has the idea to do this and stuff, it says, like, you know, he explains it to her and he says, like a conjurer completing a trick, he whirled it up and around so that it fell over me, soft and downy. Then he raised its hood to cover my head. So, like, I noticed there that Lockwood covers her first and then himself after.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff here that I think is really good for how it escalates Adelaide as a villain too. We find out that she has like this boning knife that she threatens them with.
Oh, yeah, and she's like, I used to be a butcher, and...
Yeah. And Lockwood's like, I used to kick old women in the ass. So we all have hobbies. Like it's pretty juvenile, but it's good. But it does make her more scary though.
It does, but also I like when... Because he's basically saying the same thing she is, but he sounds like a kid, and it makes her sound less scary.
Yes. Yeah. It's good.
But yeah, as they run away into the train, bullets are still like ricocheting around, so it encourages them on into a situation that they would not normally, you know, test these capes in.
Yeah. It's very scary. They have to actually go into the wreckage of the train. There's good moments here of like one of the passengers like reaches out for Lucy, but then pulls back when it gets close to the cloak. And so it's like really clear that the cloaks are doing the work that they're supposed to be doing.
But Lucy still has that they want us with them moment.
Mm-hmm.
That's creepy.
Yeah, she can feel that. Yeah, that's pretty crazy. I have a note here. I don't really know what I mean by this because I wrote it a week ago.
Last week, yep.
And it's like the track was blocked too by a train, and then I was like, this is so eerie and symbolic of the problem's effect on society. And like, I don't know. Maybe it is. I don't know what that means though.
I guess that the trains are broken down and full of ghosts.
Yeah. And so
But,
nothing
like,
works.
But they still have the tube working. They
Yeah.
just like went around.
Just not this one. You just can't cross the Thames on the tube. You have to take a bus or something now. It does a good job, I think, of establishing all the powers of the capes. It also, I think this is really smart, where you introduce some kind of new element into the story and it feels kind of paid off. You're like, oh, okay, we had these capes. They use it to get away from the Winkmans. Cool, one and done. We're done with these cape things. But then when they come back later, you're like, oh yeah, they have those. That's cool. So these are like a new resource for them that
Right.
we're laying out the rules for here.
And they've just been sitting in Jessica's room all this time. They
All
could have
this
been
time.
wearing them. Maybe their previous listener, Robin, didn't have to die. Maybe if they had discovered them earlier, research could have been going in and every agent in London could have one. And there would be much less deaths. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like the discovery of these cloaks is a bigger thing than the book makes them out to be.
The Night Watch could be a whole different kind of thing with these capes. I think it also is supposed to contrast with all this Rotwell stuff that we've been having in this book with their gadgets and whatnot. Because it's like, this is a non-English, kind of traditional society type technology. And it's like
Yes.
way better than anything else that anybody's come up with in England during the time of the problem.
I agree, but that feels like a certain type of English racism.
Yeah. Of like noble savage type stuff.
Yes, that's exactly what I was thinking of.
Yeah, but I do think that like it's making a comment about like industrial society versus like a more traditional kind of existence that
Yes, I guess I wish it had come from a Western culture then of some kind. Like it could. These brings up Greek a lot. It could have been something Greek.
that's true. Yeah.
Or something like that. The fact that this came from, I don't remember.
It was New Guinea, I think.
Yeah, right. That just feels like
Deepest, darkest New Guinea.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We went to the New World and they solved our problem. Very like.
And
I
then
don't
we
know,
wiped
Dances
them out.
with wolves and
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. But I think that's why it's here in this book is part of the reason why that contrast is going on. But yeah, I agree with you.
I do like the industrialism versus traditionalism and like that I do like, but I think it was done not
It's
even poorly,
definitely-
just very English.
Yeah, it is definitely problematic. I think that's good to point out. Yeah, and like I said, I think a lot of this feels kind of Orpheus. It's kind of funny that they go in to get the one dead person, and then they don't
get him.
they don't get him. It's kind of
that
the same,
sucks.
but it's all modern. I don't know. It's good.
When you first mentioned Orpheus, I was like, well, yeah, I guess Lockwood does kind of lead Lucy through that tunnel of dead and get her out. And I'm like, oh, but I guess if we're thinking of Skull, then
Yeah.
the metaphor works even better.
It
Jeez.
works. Yeah, it works all the way through. I do like that, like you said, that these things have been in the attic the whole time, and Lockwood kind of not dealing with his shit has really been holding him back in a way that, like he could have had these things.
But like possibly holding society back.
Yeah.
Like, geez.
So I like that the room that's like his trauma room or whatever actually has like the answers to the problems that he's having here and now. Like that's a really interesting way to invert like all this ghost stuff about like bad things happened in the past and it's still hurting me now. Like the answers are also there, but you have to do the work of like literally unpacking, your stuff.
Yeah.
So-
And that continues on into book 5.
Yeah.
Almost in an even bigger way.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Like the way out and stuff like that. So like, yeah. I just like that all of that. It's very well done. It's not like heavy handed or anything. It's just like, and it also, like I said, establishes this new ability that they're going to have. So
Yes.
it's good.
Agreed. So what was your best joke?
Skull has, I think it's got to be a Skull thing.
It's got to be, I really liked the stab him and let's go, or the, oh, another suicide mission. Just everything Skull said in this.
You
was
could take
great.
him. You're a big girl.
Jesus.
That's messed up, but it's pretty funny. I think for me, it's the "Are you queuing now? Just how British are you people?"
Right. Yes. Yeah, that one was extremely good.
That made me laugh out loud the first time I heard it, and people looked at me like I was crazy because I had earbuds in my ears.
Oh, I thought you were going to say because you are crazy.
Well, that might be too. Yeah.
Whenever I make a joke like that now, I think of our Spotify comment. But it's been 4 minutes. Gotta say something mean about Alan.
Reel him back into reality.
Yep.
Go touch some grass.
Oh gosh.
I mean, there's punk rock, right? Like, there's a few choices.
The whole
here.
conceit of the chapters, though, is punk
yeah,
rock,
really, it is.
Breaking into a black market in disguise. To
The
save
way
a
that
friend.
Lucy's on board with it too is like,
yeah,
she's really. They're just
Lockwood's
two
got
punks.
a crazy plan. I've missed the crazy plans.
Yep.
Didn't think that's what I was gonna miss. Anyways, I think that's everything.
And I think next time we're moving on to part 4, the Cursed Village. And
I'm excited.
Yeah. There's going to be 5 chapters in that, so we'll probably do it in 2 parts. So clearly we'll be reading 2.5 chapters one time and 2.5 the other time. That's how that works.
That's, oh my God, can you imagine? No, thank you. But if you think we should do it that way, you can let us know on Twitter at Lockwood Podcast. Or if you want to just follow me, you can on Instagram at Inferior Kate Reads.
Oh, and crap. I forgot about this until we got right here. We did get an email that I wanted to talk about.
Oh, okay.
And you can send your emails to contact@hollowgroundmedia.com. But we got an email from Shirley. We had been talking about, like, why does Penelope Fitz send them to the cannibal place? Like, it doesn't make sense. What is she trying to do? Like, and so Shirley's answer to this that we didn't really think about, I guess, was that she was using the cannibal and the haunted house as a possible murder weapon to kill Lockwood and Co. because she's worried that they figured out what was going on with the giant cluster. Like, the George's method could reveal, like, the origin of the problem, which is what George is doing, we find out. So she wants to nip that in the bud, and she sees this as a way to do it in a really clean way, I guess.
Yeah, I would be all in on that theory if she hadn't been adamant about Lucy going.
Right. Yeah, because we felt like it was a test, right, of Lucy's abilities.
Whether or not it was, I do feel that Penelope wants Lucy alive for now. Like, specifically wants Lucy for herself.
This idea did make me think, though, that, like, a really good villain plan, right, is, like, no matter what happens, you win. Like, that's kind of what you want a good villain plan to be. So, like, whether they got the source or not, is there a way that she wins? And I think that by throwing Kipps at them, this was a good way for her to kind of get rid of Kipps. Like, if Kipps died in there, oh, well, that's really sad. But I don't think that she thought they would find the source. I don't think that's an outcome that she thought was possible. And so I think that she thought they were going to come out of this and have failed to find the source. And she would be like, well, Kipps, it's been really nice working with you, but I'm going to have to let you go. Like, you clearly can't lead people. Also, Lockwood and Co., if we're going to work together in the future, I'm really going to need to pair you with some kind of supervisor because you're just not able to get the job done. Like, this place is empty. You had lots of time to figure it out. You couldn't do it. So this would be like a way for her to tie someone to their group to, like, monitor them, which is kind of what ends up happening anyway. I thought it could be like a stepping stone to that. Like, I hadn't really considered that she would be using the house as a weapon until I thought of that idea I was like, oh yeah, she could use it against Kip. She could use it against the team. It doesn't really answer why she needs Lucy there, but
Yeah, that's my thing. I agree with all those points that you and Shirley in the email brought up. But Lucy's presence doesn't make sense to me.
mm-hmm.
Even without book 5, you can speculate that, like, we know. God, do we know that Marissa Fitz was a listener? Yes, because she could talk to type 3s. Yes, gosh.
Yeah, she's the most famous listener, yeah.
Yeah, and so we could presume that Penelope had something like that also, and that she does not have any children of her own.
And it would just be useful to have, Lucy's very powerful, so
yes, and
having her would be good.
And it was after Lucy joined the agency that Lockwood and Co. started getting these ghosts that were thought impossible to get.
Yeah, they shut down Coombe Carey Hall. It was like, that's impossible.
Yeah.
So looking at like how could this be a win-win for Penelope and like using the house as a weapon, a good idea. I just hadn't thought of it that way, I guess.
Yeah, I'm sure she would not have been upset if George and or Lockwood and or Kipps died. I don't think she cares about Holly one way or the other.
Yeah.
Which is terrible to say. Like, that's a big insult to Holly, kind of. But you know what I'm saying.
Oh, yeah. And that's part of the point of the Ealing Cannibal, too, that she, like I said, I don't think that she thought they could find the source.
Yeah.
And she underestimates them. And that's like her big weakness.
Yeah, I think she does not underestimate Lucy, but she does underestimate the rest of them.
Mm-hmm. Especially Kipps, I think.
Yeah, well, so does everybody. That's kind of the point of Kipps.
Yep.
Or that's his like character arc, that he realized that he was basically nothing and that Lockwood would make him something. All right, I think we're good. Oh, if you want to reach out, blah, blah, blah. We said that already. And remember to stab first and ask questions later.